Hi class, this is Mr. Tan and we're in BBE, Business and Business Environment, and we are focusing on question 3, PO3. And PO3 says explain, keyword here, explain means to go into more detail. The relationship between different organizational functions. So explain the relationship between different organizational functions and how they link to organization objectives and structure. So the first thing that we need to do is obviously look at what functions are and explain what functions are. Well, different functions can be seen as different departments within an organization. So the different departments in an organization like Toyota would include sales, marketing, production, warehousing, IT, research and development, admin, finance, and all the HR and all the other department and functions within that company. So when you hear function, really what we're talking about are departments. And then the question is saying the relationship between different organizational functions. So what is the relationship and how does that affect the aims and objectives of the company, and how does that affect the structure of the company? Okay, so just bear in mind there are many different parts to this question. So let's look at the interrelationships between the different functions. Well, in the merit and distinction criteria we do look at this again, but we can see that no functions or no departments work alone. They have to work together to achieve the objectives of the company. So if I was in the marketing department and I was undertaking a marketing campaign, and within the marketing campaign I had an objective, and the objective was to sell 20,000 more cars, well, obviously that's going to be dependent upon the interrelationships that I have and how effective I have in terms of implementing that marketing campaign. So when I'm doing a marketing campaign, I will need to make sure that I let the production know that we're doing a marketing campaign, we're doing a national TV campaign to highlight the new Toyota hybrid car that has the electric and engine in it. Well, we need to let the production department know what we're expecting in terms of sales, so that they can actually make sure that come these months that the advertising campaign is coming through, that these cars are going to be ready to go into the franchise dealers. Marketing department needs to let the franchise dealers know of this new advertising campaign, when it's going to take place, and all the details of the campaign. You need to let them know what promotional material is available, what special promotions are available, and all the discounting and all the codes that they need to do, and what the terms and conditions are going to be on this car. So then the franchise dealer will have all the in-store information, all the in-store promotional material, so that they know exactly when the ads are going on TV and if people come in to start asking about this car. Well, then the marketing department, will need to let the administration department know that this promotion is coming on. They will need to let the customer services department know, so that the customer services department can answer questions about this if anyone has any questions. And on top of this, if you're having discounts, then you're going to change some of your IT to have special discounted codes. Well, then you're going to need to let the IT department know that this is actually happening. In addition to this, you're going to need to let the sales department know that you're doing this great campaign, so that the sales department can now go out to their sales representatives, and the sales representatives will then go out to all the franchise dealers in all the networks in the countries that you're selling this car, so then they can let people know. But if you don't do all of these things, and you don't do them in time and most efficiently and effectively, then you're not going to get the maximum benefit, which is going to be sales. So therefore, you're not going to be meeting the objectives of the company. So even if we look at a new product coming through, when a new product coming through, like Toyota's new car, which had the big problem in terms of product recall, well, why did this happen? Which departments should have been talking together, so when the product goes through, it was tried and tested? To make sure that these problems don't happen, to meet the company's objectives. And here we can see that there must have been a problem between certain departments in terms of the interrelationship where the appropriate checks were not done on the car. The appropriate checks were not done, and it was allowed to go through, and these issues occurred whereby the brakes would not work and the accelerator still stayed on, which meant a few people crashed and died. The cars were recalled, and this directly affected the company's aims and objectives. It directly affected the reputation of the company. It directly affected the sales of the company. It directly affected the amount of profit that the company was making. So here we can see that the interrelationship between these departments weren't working, which had a devastating effect. Even if we take another example in terms of finance, we can see that the finance department affects other departments. I mean, if you're in administration, well, unless you've got resources to spend and to buy the material, you can't buy more stock. If you're in HR, unless you have the finances and the resources there to employ more people, then you can't employ the people to position those people in other departments that need those people in order to meet the work levels, so that these work levels can meet the criteria and the aims and objectives of the company in terms of additional sales and whatever. So again, the finance department will be influential in terms of the sales and the budgeting. If the sales and budgeting realise that there's going to be a month or 2 months where they need additional funding, well, the finance department will be able to source that funding and finance those gaps to make sure that everything runs smoothly within the organisation, so that everyone is actually paid. Okay, so we can see that the interrelationship between the different departments or different functions obviously work together to affect the company's objectives and the structure as well. How does a global company like Toyota work in terms of getting things done? Well, they are divisional by structure, and so they have geographical areas in America, in Europe, and all over the world. So the world is split by geographical area, and then you have geographical areas within that area, which will then have functions within that division. And the functions within that division will then work together to try and meet the objectives. Well, the structure and the centralization of power and decentralization of power, before, the power used to be taken all from Japan. So even though they had the ideas, they couldn't actually implement anything or agree anything or do anything until they had the okay from Japan. But then Japan had decentralized the power to give power to those geographical areas, and those geographical areas were then allowed to make decisions themselves without having to go direct to the head office in Japan. So if you had a geographical structure, obviously that structure is going to then allow for a greater communication now that power has been decentralized. But if you had one functional structure, then it'd be hard to see how Toyota could operate in a functional structure with just one marketing department, one sales department, one R&D department, without any specialization, without any a focus on specific products and specific needs, because functional departments focus less on specialization, whereas divisional structures focus more on specialization for the people in those countries. So again, the structure is going to affect how well departments work together, and depending upon how departments work together or not will affect whether or not they meet their aims and objectives. So again, the interrelationships are going to be affected, it's going to affect the aims and objectives, but also the structure itself is going to affect the interrelationships of the different functions and departments, trying to meet those objectives of the company. Okay, has that answered the question? Yeah. Are there any questions there? No? Okay, many thanks.